Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubheva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Ukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girimya Kripatamaham Bande Sri Guru Dantarinam Kripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana Smriti Yasmin Dushkaram Karam Bhaveta Smriti Pritam Syat Sri Chaitanyam Namami. Okay, you can share the screen and we'll resume.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes,
please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, I just want to check if it was chapter 21 according to me in my.
नहीं माता जी 21 complete हो गया 22.
22? Okay.
Who would like to read today?
Yeah.
Who would like to read today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanvatna. Prabhuji, can I read, please?
Rukmini Harisenimati?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine. Please go ahead.
Chapter 20.
Slowly, okay? Slowly. You are living in Vrindavan. You're always in ecstatic mood. So read slowly. We are not in that mood.
Yes, Prabhuji. Chapter 22. Srimad Bhagavatam. After the conversion of the Mayavadi sannyasis to the path of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, many scholars and inquisitive people visited the Lord at Banaras. Since it was not possible for everyone to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at his residence, people stood in lines to see him as he passed on his way to the temples of Vishwanath and Bindu Mahadev. One day, when the Lord visited the temple of Bindu Madhav with his associates Chandrasekhar, Paramananda, Tapan Mishra, Sanatan Goswami, and others, he sang Hare Nam Hari Na
Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopala Govindaram Srimadasana. Guru Maharaj sings this before every class.
Hare Nam, yes. When the Lord sang in this way, chanting and dancing, thousands of people gathered around him, and when the Lord chanted, they rode. This vibration was so tumultuous that Prakashanand Saraswati, who was sitting nearby, immediately joined the crowd with his disciples. As soon as he saw the beautiful body of Lord Chaitanya and saw how he was dancing with his associates, Prakashanand Saraswati joined and began to sing Hari Hari. All the inhabitants of Banaras were struck with wonder upon seeing the ecstatic dancing of Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya checked his continuous ecstasy and stopped dancing when he saw the Mayavadi sannyasis. As soon as the Lord stopped chanting and dancing, Prakashanand Saraswati fell at his feet. Trying to stop him, Lord Chaitanya said, "Oh, you are the spiritual master of the whole world, Jagat Guru, and I am not even equal to your disciples. You should therefore not worship an inferior like me, for actually, I am not even equal to the disciple of your disciple. You are exactly like Supreme Brahman, and if I allow you to fall down at my feet, I will commit a very great offense. Although you have no vision of duality, for sake of teaching the people in general, you should not do this. Previously, I spoke ill of you many times, Prakashanand Saraswati replied, "Now, in order to free myself from the result of my offense, I fall down at your feet." He then quoted a verse from the Vedic literature which states that even a liberated soul will again become a victim of material contamination if he commits an offense against the Supreme Lord. Prakashanand Saraswati then quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto 24th chapter 9th verse regarding the Nand Maharaj being attacked by the serpent who had previously been a worshipful Vidyadhara. When the serpent was touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, he regained his previous body and was freed from the reactions of his sinful activities. When Lord Chaitanya thus heard himself equated with Krishna, he mildly protested. He wanted to warn people in general not to equate the Supreme Lord with any living entity. Although he was the Supreme Lord himself, he protested against this comparison in order to teach us. Thus, he said that it is the greatest offense to equate anyone with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Lord Chaitanya always maintained that Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is infinite and that the living entities, however great they may be, are but infinitesimal. In this connection, he quoted a verse from the Padma Puran, which is found in the Vaishnav Tantra Hari Bhakti Vilas 1.73. A person who equates the Lord, the Supreme Lord, with even the greatest of the demigods, such as Brahma and Shiva, must be considered a number one atheist. I can understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, Prakashanand Saraswati continued, and even though you present yourself as a devotee, you are still worshipable because you are greater than all of us in education and realization. Therefore, by blaspheming you, we have committed the greatest offense. Please excuse us. How a devotee becomes the greatest of all transcendentalists is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 6 canto 14th chapter 5th verse. Muktanam api siddhanam narayan parayanaha surdulabha prashantatma koteshva api mahamune. There are many liberated souls and perfected souls, but out of all of them, he who is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is best. Such a devotee of the Supreme Lord is always calm and quiet, and his perfection is very rarely seen, even among millions of persons. Prakashananda then quoted another verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto 4th chapter 46 verse, in which it is stated that one's duration of life, prosperity, fame, religion, and the benediction of the higher authorities are all lost when one offends a devotee. Finally, Prakashananda quoted Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto 5th chapter 32nd verse, which says that although all the misgivings of the conditioned soul disappear at the touch of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot touch his lotus feet unless one receives the benediction of the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord's pure devotee. In other words, one cannot become a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead unless he is favored by another pure devotee of the Lord. Now I am taking shelter of your lotus feet, Prakashananda Saraswati said, for I want to be elevated to the position of a devotee of the Supreme Lord. After talking in this way, Prakashananda Saraswati and Lord Chaitanya sat together. Whatever you have said concerning discrepancies in the Mayavad philosophy is also known by us, Prakashanand said. Indeed, we know that all the commentaries on Vedic scriptures by Mayavadi philosopher are erroneous, especially those of Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya interpretations of the Vedanta Sutra are all figments of his imagination. You have not explained the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra and verses of the Upanishads according to your imagination, but have presented them as they are. Thus, we are all pleased to have heard your explanation. Such explanations of the Vedanta Sutra and Upanishad cannot be given by anyone but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since you have all the potencies of the Supreme Lord, please explain the Vedanta Sutra further so that I may be benefited. Lord Chaitanya protested against being called the Supreme Lord. My dear sir, I am an ordinary living entity. I cannot know the real meaning of the Vedanta Sutra. But Vyasdev, who is an incarnation of Narayan, knows its real meaning. No ordinary living entity can interpret the Vedanta Sutra according to his mundane conceptions. In order to curb commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra by unscrupulous persons, the author himself, Vyasdev, has already commented upon the Vedanta Sutra by writing Srimad Bhagavatam. In other words, the best explanation of a book is written by author himself. No one can understand the author's mind unless the author himself discloses the meaning of his words. Therefore, the Vedanta Sutra should be understood through Srimad Bhagavatam, the commentary written by the author of Vedanta Sutra. Pranava or Omkar is the divine substance of all the Vedas. Omkar is further explained in the Gayatri Mantra exactly as it is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavatam, there are 4 verses written in this connection, and these were explained to Brahma by Lord Krishna himself. In his turn, Brahma explained to Narada, and Narada explained them to Vyasadeva. In this way, the purport of the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam has come down through disciplic succession. It is not that anyone and everyone can make his own foolish commentary on the Vedanta Sutra and mislead his readers. Anyone who wants to understand the Vedanta Sutra must read Srimad Bhagavatam carefully. Under the instructions of Narad Muni, Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam with the purpose of explaining the aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra. In writing Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva collected all the essence of the Upanishads, the purport of which was also explained in the Vedanta Sutra. Srimad Bhagavatam is thus the essence of all Vedic knowledge. That which is stated in the Upanishads and restated in the Vedanta Sutra is explained very nicely in Srimad Bhagavatam. There is a verse in Ishopanishad similarly to one found in Srimad Bhagavatam 8th canto, 1st chapter, 10th verse, which states that whatever one sees in the cosmic manifestation is but the Supreme Lord's energy and is non-different from him. Consequently, he is the controller, friend, and maintainer of all living entities. We should live by the mercy of God and take only those things which are allotted to us according to our particular living condition. In this way, by not encroaching on another's property, one can enjoy life. In other words, the purport of the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, and Srimad Bhagavatam is one and the same. If one studies Srimad Bhagavatam carefully, he will find that all the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra are nicely explained therein. Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us three subjects: how to re-establish our relationship with the Supreme Lord, how to act in that relationship, and lastly, how to achieve the highest benefit from it. The four Srimad Bhagavatam verses beginning with Aham evasmam ivagre 2.9.33 to 36 are the gist of the whole Bhagavatam. These are nicely summarized by Lord Chaitanya as follows: I, Krishna, am the supreme center for all the relationships of all living entities, and knowledge of me is the supreme knowledge. The process by which a living entity can attain me is called Abhidaya. By it, one can attain the highest perfection of life, love of Godhead. When one attains love of Godhead, his life becomes perfect. The explanation of these four verses is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, and Lord Chaitanya gave a short description of the principles of these verses. He said that by mental speculation or academic education, no one can understand the constitutional position of the Supreme Lord, how he is situated, his transcendental qualities, his transcendental activities, and his six opulences. These can be understood only by the mercy of the Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, one who is fortunate enough to receive the Lord's favor can understand all these explanations by the mercy of the Lord. The Lord existed before the material creation. Therefore, the material ingredients, nature, and the living entities all emanated from Him. And after dissolution, they rest in Him. When the creation is manifest, it is maintained by Him. Indeed, whatever manifestation we see is but a transformation of His external energy. When the Supreme Lord withdraws His external energy, everything enters into Him. In the first of the four verses, the word Aham is given 3 times to stress that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full with all opulences. Aham is stated 3 times just to chastise one who cannot understand or believe in the transcendental nature and form of the Supreme Lord. The Lord possesses His internal energy, His external and marginal and relative energies, and the manifestation of the cosmic world and the living entities. The external energy is manifested by the qualitative modes, gunas, of material nature. One who can understand the nature of the living entity in the spiritual world can actually understand Vedyam, or perfect knowledge. One cannot understand the Supreme Lord simply by seeing the material energy and the conditioned soul, but when one is in perfect knowledge, he is freed from the influence of the external energy. The moon reflects the light of the sun, and without the sun, the moon cannot illuminate anything. Similarly, this material cosmic manifestation is but the reflection of the spiritual world. When one is actually liberated from the spell of the external energy, he can understand the constitutional nature of the Supreme Lord. Devotional service to the Lord is the only means for attaining Him, and this devotional service can be accepted by everyone and anyone in any country and under any circumstance. Devotional service is above the four principles of religion, culminating in liberation. Actually, even the preliminary processes of devotional service are transcendental to liberation, the highest subject of ordinary religion. Therefore, irrespective of one's caste, creed, color, country, etc., one should approach a bona fide spiritual master and hear from him everything about devotional service. The real purpose of life is to revive our dormant love of God. Indeed, that is our ultimate necessity. How that love of God can be attained is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. There is a theoretical knowledge and specific or realized knowledge. And perfect realized knowledge is attained when one realizes the teaching received from the spiritual master.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Can you just read the penultimate paragraph, similar of that from that point? Well, sorry, from okay. You read it from the read the whole sentence. Read the whole paragraph once. This last, I mean, the Lord possesses his internal energy, the external marginal, and that paragraph.
The Lord possesses his internal energy, his external, marginal, and relative energies, and the manifestation of the cosmic world and the living entities. The external energy is manifested by the qualitative modes of Mummy, ban karo, please. The external energy is manifested by the qualitative modes, gunas of material nature. One who can understand the nature of the living entity in the spiritual world can actually understand Vedyam or perfect knowledge. One cannot understand the Supreme Lord simply by seeing the material energy and the conditioned soul, but when one is in perfect knowledge, he is freed from the influence of the external energy. The moon reflects the light of the sun, and without the sun, the moon cannot illuminate anything. Similarly, this material cosmic manifestation is but the reflection of the spiritual world. When one is actually liberated from the spell of the external energy, he can understand the constitutional nature of the Supreme Lord. Devotional service to the Lord is the only means for attaining Him, and this devotional service can be accepted by anyone and anyone in any country and under any circumstance. Devotional service is above the four principles of religion, culminating in liberation. Actually, even the preliminary processes of devotional service are transcendental to liberation, the higher subject matter of ordinary religion.
So here in this paragraph, we see that uh, the situation in this material world is contrasted with pure devotional service. So the material world and all its activities are activities of darkness. So it is explained just like the sun illuminates the moon. Okay, so here also the activities of this material world are all are conducted under the influence of the external energy. So when we for example, Prabhupada says here, the moon cannot illuminate anything. Similarly, this cosmic manifestation, but the reflection of the spiritual world, when one is actually liberated from the spell of the external energy, he can understand the constitutional nature of the Supreme Lord. So, just like in a reflection, you can see not the full object, right? For example, it's a three-dimensional object. You can only see a two-dimensional reflection of a three-dimensional object. So there is always something lost in a reflection. And for that, and it is also here, it is dependent on the sun. It is not, so material nature is fully dependent on the Supreme Lord. Of course, it's the energy, but the point that Prabhupada is trying to make here is that when you have the shelter of the sun, okay, then you don't need to be in the material world, which is reflected by the which is dependent on the illumination of the sun. So when you're in the illumination of the sun itself, what is the need for you when you can be in the illumination of the sun? What is the need for you to be in a dark place which needs to be illuminated by the sun? In the sense, the sun is illuminating the moon just like the reflection, right? So that's the example that is given. So the material world is dependent on the sun. Whereas if you are in the sun itself, then why do you need to be in a place which is dependent on what do you say, on the illumination of the sun? I don't know if I'm able to explain this clearly, but the point that Prabhupada is trying to make here is that, see, all these activities, the four principles of religion, right? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, they are highly glorified. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. But here it is saying even the preliminary process of devotional service is transcendental liberation. Because what is happening there is they're all defined in reflection, in connection with the material world. It is all defined in connection to a place of darkness. But if you are in the sunshine, then obviously even the preliminary, that's what I'm saying, even the preliminary things are superior to darkness. It's not that it is, I don't know how to put it, like it's not that the process of devotional service is the best thing in this world of darkness. No, it is beyond this world of darkness. It is even, you can't say, okay, you have four principles of religion culminating revelation. Even the preliminary process of devotional service is transcendental liberation, the highest object of ordinary religion. Because ordinary religion is an activity which is performed in relation to the modes, in relation to this world of darkness. Whereas Krishna consciousness is an activity which is performed in illumination. I don't know if I'm able to explain this with as much clarity as I wanted to. If you have some comment on that or question on that, you can ask me. Because all said and done, the Mayavadis also, this so-called, elevated Mayavadis, their activities all revolve around the darkness of this material world only. They're trying to get liberation. They are still, how do you say, hovering in this material realm and trying to get free from this material realm. But whereas the activity of devotional service is not an activity of this material world, it is a pure transcendental activity. That is the point that Prabhupada is trying to make here. It is a transcendental activity. It's got nothing to do with the activities of this material world, whether it is for sense gratification or whether it's for liberation. Both are activities of this material world. But as Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, the transcendental urge of the soul. So this is a different kind of activity. Devotional service is a different kind of activity. That's why when the preliminary is superior to liberation, because those are all activities of enjoyment or dharma, artha, kama, moksha, either of trying to enjoy the material world or renounce the material, or attaining liberation. Both are in relation to the material world. But whereas this is in relation to the spiritual world or transcendental, it's a transcendental activity. It is not the highest in the material realm. Rather, it's not connected to the material realm at all. That's why even the preliminary thing is higher than anything in the material world. Is that okay? I don't know if it makes sense.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, so the simile you have that is being given here regarding the sun is that once we are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then
Yeah.
that activity itself is transcendental. It
Correct.
does not belong. It does not belong to this material world. The moment you are in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
Correct.
then you are as it is that the simile that you said that this sun itself is not a reflection. When you're of the moon, then it doesn't have to talk, or it doesn't have to deal with the. I'm not able to get the reflection. It has no meaning with the reflection of the sun on the moon. We are within the sun itself.
Yes.
So similarly, when we are in devotional service of the Lord, then we transcend this material world, and that realm of being in devotional service. Is that what you mean to say?
See, all activities that we can conceive of normally are activities of the material world. We can easily conceive activities of enjoyment. That's easy. And then there's activities of dharma, artha, kama, moksha also. That is also an activity connected to this material world. That is the point that Prabhupada is trying to make here. That is also an activity connected to the material world. What we are doing is a different activity of a different world. So it is not the highest activity in the material world. You understood, right? It is not like, okay, there is in the material world, there's dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Higher than that is prema. No, yes, higher than dharma, higher than moksha is prema. But the point is dharma, artha, kama, moksha are connected to this world. Prema is not connected to this world. That's why even if you don't have prema, even if you're performing the preliminary stage, still you're higher than the liberated person.
Yes, you transcend the material world.
Correct. It's because it's not an activity of this material world. Therefore, it is higher than even the liberated stage.
Thank you, got it.
Okay, I think I've got to go today. We'll resume again next week, and you can ask questions there if you have any further questions. Already I'm 5 minutes late, but it's okay. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyascha paritana pavanebhyo vaishnavyo Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Jai Guru.
Tanat
Thank
pranam.
you,
Hare
Prabhuji. Thank you.
Pranam.
Now.